presentation? Did you make a presentation? Or they're just looking at it?
They're just looking at it.
Visualize it, it's like a silent review. Visualize.
Yeah.
I just love this project, I have to say. You know, and I'm completely willing to suspend all disbelief because there's so much comprehensive and sincere, you know, engagement in what they're trying to do. There's multiple levels of exploration. I'm just looking at the book. It's, you know, it's great. You know, in a way, I don't even have to know what it's totally about or believe that it's possible. I don't care. It's an academic project, and so I just think it's great. It would be one thing if there wasn't as much convincing take, or not convincing, but enough of a variety of takes on so many different issues, and without the visual presentation. But the fact that it's got this actually pretty great presentation and the variety of takes, just to me makes it like something. I'm just so happy we have the space in our program for someone to do this kind of a project. And if you look at this book, the only thing I would suggest is that so much of this is futuristic, and there's stuff in the book which kind of brings it home in different scales and different ages. It suggests a kind of past visionary thinking that's occurred in the past. And I wish some of that information was up here as well, because it adds kind of a historical, contextual take of the kind of thinking that people have had, futuristic, wild thinking. And so I just, you know, Buckminster Fuller's big dome over Manhattan, and, you know, it might be in here actually. I saw, you know, it was funny, we saw the faculty candidate talk about this the other day, biosphere.
It's in the video.
It's multi-scalar, it's just great. And I don't even know really what it's about, frankly. It's okay, it's okay. I mean, I know that it's talking about, you know, some ideas about how we can design living 600 years in the future, you know, 600 years in the past, and it's the 14th century.
This is really a novel, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
You know,
One thing I would say is that, I mean, it's really fun. And there's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm curious as to the things that will like kind of continue to drive it, you know, through the rest of the quarter. And I think because it's a sort of fictional proposal, there's not a lot, and it's taking place out in space, there aren't a lot of other kind of real-world pressures, you know, putting pressure on this project. And so you could actually, it kind of could sort of exist the way that it is now without some additional pressure. And so the thing that I think would be an additional pressure that kind of would help make this a little bit more robust for the rest of the quarter is the thing that you talk about, where you allude to the sense of community, or the fact that, you know, people on this thing have to figure out a way to live, and they're doing it in a sort of survivalist mode. You know, a lot of this stuff is like taken care of for them, right? And so what is it about the design of this thing that produces a kind of viable society in the context of this, you know, spore? A really cynical short story you could read that would give you a kind of glimpse into the potential downsides of living in a thing like this would be a story called 13 for Centaurus, which was by J.G. Ballard, who's like a super cynical sci-fi writer. But it talks about basically the kind of, you know, you talk about Earth is enervated, but, you know, the sort of society inside the space station of this short story is totally enervated, you know, because the mission is so defining, everything is kind of taken care of for them, and there's nothing that actually melts the society together, and so the society kind of falls apart inside of the space station. So, like, you know, when I look at the plan looks totally pragmatic. There's the command center, and there's all this stuff on the outside, but it's like this kind of abstract ideal city without any sense of, you know, the kind of real life that has to happen, or maybe the kind of variability or struggle, you know, that would need to happen in order to kind of build society around this. So those kinds of things I think might be interesting. So I think you kind of have to manufacture some pressures in order to kind of drive this forward, since it is safely protected within the realm of fiction. But I like it.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm just thinking just keep going and just make it kind of more and more real in its unreal state. You know, so just keep with the narrative of this thing, and maybe this kind of social aspect kind of pops out of that narrative in a scientific way. That I want to see it.
I think as you move forward into spring quarter, taking care of some of these pragmatic issues will all of a sudden make this so much more enjoyable as a project. I love the graphics. I love the coherent overall picture that we get. I love that it's interactive, although one point is it is easier to see everything when it's all laid out. We've lost all these awesome plans forever if Karen's not there opening them up for us. Also, you know, there's a kind of a more just a glazing over of some of these issues, because you just kind of point to the same, you know, how artificial gravity is the same thing as the radiation shielding. It's the same as the 3D printed structure. So I would like to see more of an explanation of how these things are working for us. I'm assuming there's some sort of, that this thing is big enough that it's creating its own gravity somehow, and that we have to be way out on the outer edge of it to make use of that gravity. I'm not sure how that's working. I'm not sure how the radiation shielding is working. Is this thing floating in space, or is it locked into an orbit? I don't know any of that from this presentation, but it's a wonderful idea, and I think it's a great start. And I think if we can take care of some of these pragmatic issues for spring quarter, this will be a complete project for sure.
It's moving. This is my understanding, it's correct. It's moving and then to this. And then these individual spores drop out. Right. So there's a moving aspect, and then there's an arrival aspect to get to the planet.
So
I'd like to see that.
It's
an
a little bit of
arrival.
both.
Yeah, so seeing
Drops into an
unfolding
orbit.
of the phases, right? Yeah.
And vignettes about the architectural ideas more within the place would be great. You know, the movie WALL-E was so devastatingly effective in suggesting these kinds of architectural experiences and ways of living, and it would be a useful precedent to go back to and look at again. Because everything, you know, you guys think, I agree with, you know, I'm all enthusiastic, but I would like to see some more architectural investigation of how people assemble in places, how they relate in certain, how you use the conventional spatio-structural, social integration of architecture, how it's illustrated more clearly in the project.
This requires a movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just to explain and be there.
Yeah.
You know, forget about the plans and stuff like that. We don't care.
And it's great that students can see this as an option, a narrative option for presenting architectural design. You know, it's a narrative is a wonderful way to do a thesis, to tell a story or do a science fiction story and make the architecture just seamlessly weaved into the narrative so that you're just experiencing it. So I completely support that. I wish more students would do that with even more realistic projects like the one next door. You know, the homeless at home one. You know, even those, they can be presented that way.
One way of looking at it, since this thing is a 3D printed structure, it's not clear if it's all 3D printed on Earth and then you go out, or one part of the narrative could be that it's just the basics are printed on Earth, and as you move through these 22 light years, you're pulling in debris from the galaxy and using that to print a much larger structure, so that by the time you get out to Gleiss in 22 years, you've now achieved your entire colony.
Human waste to use as structural.
One other fun wrench in the gears I'll just throw out to you is that, you know, like the premise of the little story here is that, you know, these things preserve kind of human culture and human biology and whatever, and they transport it to Gleiss to whatever. it's fun discussion, so I would support that if you're going that way.
It will take 110 years to get out there based on the speed that we're traveling.
Well, you have to slow down.
Yeah.
So you
First engines.
She needs to hear Mark Graham's